When it comes to the importance of skills within Python Pandas, merging data frames is probably towards the top. Not only is this often asked within interview questions, but this is also a skill that you'll use pretty much on a daily basis at your job as a data scientist. And if you're a data analyst, you'll be using this quite a bit if you have to work with CSV or Excel data. So what we're going to do in today's video is go over 7 different examples of how you could use pandas merge. We're going to cover different types of merges as well, talking about left, inner, outer, as well as cross join, and then going over some little bit more advanced topics like suffixes, as well as joining on different columns. Tons to cover, guys. So let's jump right into the Python code. All right, let's jump right into it. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna import pandas as PD. So import pandas as PD. Should know how to do already. And then let's get right into our first example. So we're gonna go through a basic join, then we're gonna add complexity throughout this video. So that way it just builds upon each other. So we're gonna say example 1 basic join. And I didn't mention this in the intro, but if you do want to grab all the code for this video, it's going to be linked down below in a blog post. So one of the things we're trying to focus on in the channel now is to put all of our videos into written form on our website. So feel free to check that out. And also we have mentorships available. So if you guys need any help with anything along that side of things, right? Make sure to do that. All right. So first what we're going to do is we're going to find 2 different data frames. We're going to have df1 and then we're going to have df2. They're going to be pretty identical. So we're going to say pd.dataframe. I say identical, but they're going to be a little bit different. What we're going to have over here is player ID. So both these are going to have a player ID associated with it. We're going to keep this, again, super basic. And what we're going to do inside over here is have player ID of 1 and 2. And then we're going to have the name associated with the player ID. So we'll have name over here, and I'm just going to put in some famous cricketers. So we'll put in Shane Warne, passed away a few years ago. And then we'll have Victor Trumper, who played in the early 1900s. I have a few of his cards. Victor Trumper. All right, so we have that on this side of things. And that is going to be our first data frame. Then we're going to have something called df2. And also, by the way, if you don't know what I'm doing for this data frame, all I'm doing is passing in a dictionary over here. This is just a quick way to build it out. Plus, that way you guys don't have to download any CSVs or anything like that. So for df2, we're going to still keep this player ID. We'll have 1 and 2. And then we'll just put salary. And obviously, this is going to be a fictitious salary on this side of things. So I'll say Shane Warne has a salary of 50,000, right? And then Victor Trumper has 100,000. So go there. We'll say 50. Sorry, I accidentally put a comma. And we'll say 100 like that. All right, basic data. Again, just to show you how a join works. So what we'll do on here is just show you each of these data frames, right? And I should say basic merge. On the SQL side of things, you call these joins, but we're going to be taking a look at merges. Join is a different operation in Python Pandas. So we'll say df1.head on here, right? And you can see player ID as well as name. And then we'll go over here to df2.head. And then you'll see we have player ID and then the salary. So the goal is to combine all of this together into one data frame. So let's do that right now. And also I will say, I'm not going to show you how each of these are going to look for the data frames throughout this video. Again, I'm going to be creating everything based around this. So you just see how these work over here. We'll save you some time. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to have something called merged df. And here's how we do it. We do this equal to PD, which is for pandas. We're going to say .merge. And first, you're going to define the first data frame, right? So we're going to start off with df1, then your second data frame. So we'll say df2, and then we're going to say on. And on is how you want to merge these 2 data frames together. Well, they have this column in common, right? Player ID. We have 1 and 2. Player ID 1 is the Shane Warne. Player ID 2 is the Victor Trumper. And this one, player ID 1 is the salary of 50,000. Player ID 2 is the salary 100,000. But we know that these are going to be the same, right? Player ID. So Shane Warne has that 50,000, and then Victor Trumper has this 100,000. So we want to create a data frame with all of that together. So we're going to just say on, and we'll put over here player ID, right? So player ID like that. And yeah, so there we go. And to show you how this merged data frame looks, right, we can dig over here and take a look. So now we have this player ID on here, 1, 2. We have our name, Shane Warren. We have the salary associated, Victor Trumper. And again, this is the very basic side of things. I would not recommend writing code like this because one of the things that I want to do is define what type of join we are using in our code. So it's pretty easy to read through. We'll go over that in a minute. But what I want to show you next is how we can join on different columns, because while this is really nice, right? Both these have a player ID that you could join on. Let's talk about the real world. That often does not happen. Like idealistically, we want to have our joins super easy, right? Oh, great. We have a player ID and 2 tables. We can join them on that. But when you get in the real world, I'll give you an example, right? And this has been in both companies that I've worked at. Let's say you have an ID associated with an account. Well, because companies have years and years of data and people go in and out of companies, things just happen in the database. So sometimes you'll have something that says an account ID or a company ID or just an ID in general. And you're going to have to be able to join on those. You know that they're the same just from some documentation or talking to someone in your company, but you now have to join on those. So you can't just say on equals because we have 2 different columns, 2 different column names that we need to join on. So this is where we need to go over this example. Plus, also, it's asked a lot in interview questions. So this is going to say example 2, merge on different columns. So let's jump through that. And a lot of this code is going to be the same for our data frames, but I'm going to just call this df3 and df4, and we'll make one small modification. So let me just grab this code for you guys. And yeah, we'll go through that. So we have df3. And I'm going to keep df3 exactly the same, right? No changes at all. But we're going to change up df4. And instead of player ID, we're going to put cricketer ID. So we'll say cricketer ID like that. Again, same salary, everything like that. So how do we join this now? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this code because a lot of it's the same, right? So we have merged df, and I'm going to call this merged df2. And we're going to say pd.merge. Now we need to change this to 3 and 4, okay? And we need to delete this on. So instead of on, right, we have to first look at the column we're going to join on our first data frame, right? So df3, well, we're still going to use player ID to join. So all I'm going to do is define this as left on. So left on player ID. Now we need to talk about how we're going to join on this right data frame, right? Which is our second data frame. Well, we have this cricketer ID. And from documentation, we know that this cricketer ID and this player ID are the same. So all we do is say right on equals, and we'll say cricketer ID like that, right? And now what you'll see, and I actually have an error because cricketer ID is capitalized. I did not capitalize that, but now we're good. And what you'll see is I'll do a head over here and check this out. So we have our new data frame. We have player ID, we have name, we have cricketer ID and name, and you can see 1 to 1, 2 to 2, same data frame as above, but now we have both player ID and cricketer ID. So I do want to take 1 second and drop one of these columns. So I don't want to have the same information in here twice, right? This is a little bit too much. So I'm just going to drop this cricketer ID. And I don't know if I'm going to make a full video on how to drop columns. I think I might actually, but regardless, we'll go over here and we'll say merge df of 2, right? And we're going to say equals to merge df2 dot drop, then just define over here cricketer ID, and it's capitalized ID on this one, and we'll say axis equals 1, right? A few different ways that you could drop columns. We'll just throw that over here. Man, I cannot spell today. Cricketer ID, there we go. The column has been dropped, and then we just throw in our head over here and take a look. Now we have player ID, name, as well as salary. So again, we added on now. We can take a look at left on, right on. Remember, left on is going to be your first data frame that you have. Right on is going to be your second data frame and what they have in common, right? We know this player ID and cricket ID are being able to join. So that's how we did that over here. Great. Now let's expand on this. And for the next 3 examples, we're going to use the same data frames. We're going to use data frames 5 and 6. And we're going to be taking a look at different joins, which is going to be our inner join, our left. Oh, let me redo that. We're going to be looking at different joins, right? We're going to start off with a left join, which is what I use the most at work. Then we're going to go into an inner join, which is probably the second most used. I'd probably say I use left join probably 60% of the time, inner join about 30% of the time. And then we're going to also go over an outer join. A little bit later, we'll go over a fourth type of join, but I don't want to confuse you guys yet. Also, I do have some graphics based off of these joins, which I'll just move over to my other tab in a second, but let's jump through these, and we're going to say example 3 left join. So example 3 is going to be our left join, or in this case, we're going to call it left merge, right? I'm always used to saying joins from SQL, but in Python Pandas, we're using the merge function. So we're going to use a left merge. And what we're going to do on here is define our data frames. So let me just put this actually up over here. And we're going to say data frames for examples 3 through 5. And yeah, let's jump right into it. So we'll have df5 there, and we're going to say this is equal to pd.dataframe. And I'm just going to write this out. So what we'll have is a lot of this to be the same. Actually, I can probably just go above over here and grab this. That's what I'm going to do. Make some small modifications. I'll do the same thing with df6. I'll show you the differences in a second. Well, we'll write it out, but rather not type all of this out again. Might as well save some time, right? So for df5, we're going to have pd.dataframe that's the same. We're going to have player ID, except we're going to add a third player in here. I'm going to say number 3, and we're going to add in one of the greatest cricketers of all time, which is Don Bradman. All right. And then we have df6 over here. We're going to add it at additional. We're going to have 4. So 3 is not present in over here, right? And 4 is not present over here, right? No 3, no 4, right? And we're going to put another salary over here, which is going to be 200,000. Would be very low if Bradman played today, but that's what we have. Okay. No other changes, right? We just added Don Bradman here. And actually this 200,000 doesn't link to Don Bradman. We don't actually know who it links to because this is number 4. So we have both of those, right? df5, df6. And yeah, let's jump right into our left join. So, or left merge. So let me show you what this looks like. This is just my mock code that I did for this tutorial. So let me scroll up over here. Here is our left join. So how this works, right? We have our first data frame over here, right? And I showed you a little bit above. Let me go over here where we have our right on, left on, right? So we define our left data frame as our first one, right? So df3 in this case is our left data frame. That's why we have left on player ID. Well, we have 2 different circles over here, right? We can assume that this is going to be the left data frame and this is going to be the right data frame. Okay. So what we're looking at for this left on is we're including all the data that is in our left data frame and then what matches in this right data frame. So let's go through this code. It'll make a little bit more sense as we write it. But we're going to say over here, merged df left, and we're going to say this equals to pd.merge. And then we're going to say df5, df6, we'll have our left on equals player ID. And we have our right on equals cricketer ID. And what we're going to say is how equals left. So how equals left. And I always recommend that you mention how you're joining your data frames because this is much more readable. So what we have is our merged data frame. And just to put this on over here, say head 5. And what you'll see is we have all the results from our left data frame, right? So this is our left data frame df5, right? We have 1, 2, 3, which is present over here. We have names, right? 1, 2, 3. And what we have from the right data frame, right, is the cricketer ID. So we have cricketer ID 1, 2, and then we have a null value, which shows up as NaN. Now, why is it null? Well, if you go back into our right data frame, we don't have any information for 3. We don't have the cricketer ID, and we don't have the salary. So because that information is not present in our right data frame, but it is present in our left, we get null values, right? So again, just going back over here, everything present in our left will populate, right? This is everything in our left on this side of things, right? Player ID as well as name. Only things that match to the left one will show. Well, we have these 2. 4 right over here does not match. And because it does not match, it does not populate in this left join, right? So that is the case on this one. So let's jump into now what we call an inner join, right? So we'll say example 4, inner join. Now what an inner join, or in this case, inner merge is, look, we have the intersection between the left data frame and the right data frame, right? What is exactly here in the middle? So only results that match. And let's take a look at that, right? So what I'm gonna do is copy a lot of the code because there's no reason to rewrite this. And we're gonna say inner. And then we're just gonna change how into inner, right? And now let's take a look at what this looks like. Let's say over here .head. And what you'll see is we only have 1 and 2. Well, why is that? Well, 3 is not present in df6, right? Which is our right data frame. We have 1, 2, 4. And 4 is not present in our left data frame. So we only have 1, 2, 3. So we only have 1 and 2 that are in common. And because of that, our final over here only has 1 and 2 together, right? Player ID and cricketer ID, these match. So these have to match to show within our final data frame when we're looking at an inner join. Whereas our left join, right, all we had to have is these over here. And if we had a match, awesome. If not, we consider a null value. And if this is present in our right data frame, but not in our left, it will not show. So I want to show you another example, right? And this is going to be example 5. I actually think I miscounted the number of examples for the intro. I think I said 7, but there's like 8 examples, if I remember correctly. But this is going to be an outer join. Now, what's interesting about the outer join, and I'll scroll down over here, or outer merge, is it shows everything, right? It does not matter. Everything in the left is going to show. Everything in the right is going to show. And it's also going to show the intersection. Now, I don't use outer joins as much, but there are some use cases that it will. And again, you can just copy the same code because all we're going to do on this is change how into outer. And what you'll see is once we do this, and actually I should have called this outer. So I apologize for that little bit of a typo. I'm going to fix this really quick. All right, so outer, this will show all 4. And we'll recap this in a second, right? And still there's a lot more parts of this lesson left. But you can see that this shows player ID 1, 2, 3, right? When we have a null value there because there's no 4 in our data frame for our left one, right? And then over here, it has our right one, 1, 2. It has null values here because we have no information about 3 existing in our right data frame, but then it also shows 4, right? So to go back over here and recap, right? So we have our left join. Left join is going to include everything in our first data frame, which is our left data frame, right? And then matches on things with the right. Then we have our inner join, which only matches things that are in the center, right? So things that are going to be in both data frames. So inner join only works for things that are going to be in both, right? Full outer will showcase everything. So one more time, left only in this first data frame and what's in the right data frame. Inner, center, right? Has to be in both. Outer or full outer join, both. And I'm saying join. I come from SQL learning SQL first. We call it joins in SQL. In Pandas, we're using merge, which is the version of join. And not to confuse you, there is also a join operation. I use merge for my joins. But yeah, so there's that side of things. Now, what I will also say, there is something called a right join or a right merge. I personally don't like it. And a lot of other people do not like it as well. Go with your left, right? And if you want to swap these, right, swap 6 and 5 to perform a left join, do that. It's very common in the industry to use left joins or left merges rather than using right. Yes, it exists. I do not want you to practice using right because it's just sloppy code. Stick with your left, reorder data frames if you have to. That's the proper way to go. So I'm not going to teach you the right join. Do not use a right join or right merge. Use the left. Okay. That's my little TED talk on the right join. And I'm not going to overharp on it. Let's jump into our next example. So we were on example 5 over here. We're going to jump into example 6, which is going to be using suffixes. So example 6, suffixes. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna paste in my data frames over here just to save you guys some time because it's added on a little bit more. So what we have is DF National. We have our player IDs, right? So Shane Warne, Victor Trumper, Don Bradman, once again, Team Australia for each of these guys. And then here is gonna be a little bit of a twist, right? So now we're gonna have our professional teams, and again, data frame, player ID 124. We'll have Shane Warne, Victor Trumper, and then we'll have Virat Kohli in here. So I've showed all Australian cricketers. Now I wanted to throw in an Indian cricketer and different teams, right? Royals, CC, RCB, right? Which is professional teams. We have national teams over here, right? We have professional teams down below over here. So a little bit different, right? And we'll put all these together over here on that side of things. Great. So why we want to use suffixes? Well, here is another issue. So I showed you what happens with our different joins, right? If we have different things like player ID versus like cricketer ID and things like that. But you also have the use case where you have two columns that are the same in a data frame, in different data frames, right? So we have team over here as well as team over here, and that can be confusing. So we have to add in specific suffixes for that in this instance. So what we'll do is we'll say cricketer or cricket suffixes PD equals PD.merge. We have DF national, DF professional. We're going to say on equals our player ID. Again, not really real world scenario because these won't always be the same. Sometimes it happens. I'll over player ID over here. Now what we're going to do is have our suffixes. So we'll say suffixes, and inside over here will be a tuple. So we'll say suffixes equal. And what you typically want to do is have an underscore first. So we'll have an underscore over here. And this is going to be our left data frame, right? As I mentioned, our first one. We're just going to call this national, right? So let's put national, and then we'll put a comma, right? And then we'll do our professional. So I'm just going to go over here and have that. And then lastly, how we're going to join this, let's just say we do a left join, right? So we'll say how equals left. No errors. And just to show you what this looks like over here, another head, and voila. So we have our player ID, we have name national, name professional, team professional. Again, you can clear out columns as you want. So like this name professional, you can clear it out since it's already over here, name national. You may want to rename this again, just based off of how you want to do things at the very end. But regardless, right, we joined on player IDs, so that gets no suffix. Then we have our names, and these are, right, the same information. So again, I would recommend dropping that one. But now we have the two different teams, right? We have a national team and we have a professional team. So this is a differentiator, right? This makes it super easy to understand, right? Shane Warne, Australian team, played for the Royals. At one point, you have Victor Trumper, Australia, Sydney CC. Then you have Don Bradman, who just wasn't present in this professional data frame, right? Obviously he did play professional cricket, but for some reason he wasn't in this data frame. So that's how suffixes work. You'll see this happen in interview type questions. I know I've seen this before out there, not in my own personal interviews that I've done, but at least on different websites like Strata Scratch and LeetCode. So now what I want to show you guys is one last example of a merge over here, also a join, and this is called a cross. So this is occasionally used, but I want to put it in this video because I do think it is still helpful to explain it. So this is going to be a cross join. We're going to say /merge, right? And what this does is there's nothing to join these on. So throughout this whole video, I've showed you can join left on, right on, as well as on. Well, a cross join is unique because there's nothing to join it on. What it does is it builds out every possibility out there with data frames, which sounds weird. You might be like, isn't that how an outer join works? Well, if we go back to our outer join, right? And I'll just go back to this over here. This shows you the only information that is present in both of them, right? They're joined together. This will, let me show you. This is probably easier to explain once we build this out, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to have DF teams, right? And we have team IDs 1, 2, 3. We have team name India, Australia, and Pakistan, right? And then what we'll have over here next is DF outcomes. and we'll just populate this over here. I probably should type this out, but either way, again, code is going to be down below. So we have outcomes, right? And win-loss. So let's say we want to have another data frame, right? And we want to have all these team IDs, team name, and then all the outcomes associated with them, right? So we have team ID, team name, outcome win, outcome loss, right? Team ID name, outcome win, outcome loss. So we want to do this a lot faster. Well, you'd use this like a cross join. So all we want to do on our cross join, very, very simple on here. So we'll say df cross join. We're going to say equals df teams.merge. So we're merging directly from this teams, right? We're going to merge our outcomes on here. And we're going to say how equals cross, how equals cross. And you could also rewrite this another way, and I'll show you how we can write this in a second. But now if we go over here and just print this out, you can see we have team ID India, right? Win. Team ID won, India lost. So we're assigning win and loss to each of these specific rows, right? So in this one over here, df teams, and just to show you how this would work over here, you have df teams, right? We have each row, but now each row is getting multiplied by this outcome. So we have one of this row with a win, one of these rows with a loss, right? Australia has a win, it has a loss. Pakistan has a win, Pakistan has a loss. And again, we didn't specify how we're joining these, right? It just takes what's in this data frame, right? And it expands this out. So everything that is an outcome, right, will get applied to each row, one at a time. So like if I put over here tie, right, now we'll have 3 rows for each thing. So we go back over here, right, and you'll see that we have win, loss, tie, win, loss, tie, win, loss, tie. So it really multiplies things out faster. Again, I don't use cross join that often. It's just good knowledge to have, but you don't really need to use it that often. This is probably the preferred way to write this out. What we also could do is do pd.merge, right? You can go back and over here, have your df teams, kind of like what we've shown in the whole video. Again, it does not really matter. We'll say cross join 2. So both of these are valid. You can just see if I go to here, join 2, we have the same exact thing. So just to stay up with the video, right? pd.merge, left, right, how equals cross, or this works as well. So df teams, put that first, dot merge, outcomes, and then this and over here. So again, I wouldn't really spend too much time really focusing on your cross join or merge, but where I'd really spend all your time on, right? First, knowing how to join 2 different data frames on the same column, pretty basic. Then, right, how we go over here and talk about different columns. I'd spend a little bit more time on that, knowing your left column and your right column, or spend the majority of your time is your examples 3 through 5, left, inner, and outer joins. It's so important. I know from just like interviews and stuff like that, these are always like the first weed out questions. What's a left join? What's an inner join? Like, tell me the differences between those. Sometimes in an interviewer, they might ask you what an outer join is. Again, spend your time knowing the different types of joins. If you want to have a little bit more context, also bring up a cross join. Although it is a little bit harder to explain, I would say it's easier just to visually explain it, how you're building out each additional row based off of what's in that second data frame. And you will have those times where in columns that are same in both data frames, right? Adding a suffix to it makes it much easier, at least on the data cleanup side of things. So yeah, that is essentially pandas merge, also kind of call them as like SQL joins within Python Pandas. Thanks guys for checking out this video on pandas merge, and if it cleared up a concept or you learned something new, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It's a bonus, we're uploading 2 to 3 videos a week. A few links down below for you guys to help you out. I'm going to link a few other videos that I think you guys would enjoy. We also have mentorships down there, a free Discord server as well, and the code for this video. And if you want to continue this pandas playlist that I am creating, you can click right over here to watch the next video.